Hello, this is Ted Henry, winemaker at Clos du Val, just going live here in a beautiful afternoon in Stags Leap District. It's actually remarkably sunny and warm today. We are lucky to have a good start of the growing season, and the other thing that's pretty nice is we're actually out of frost danger. If you know about that, it's kind of the worst part of this March, April time of the year is we get nights that are too cold and it kind of hurts our grapevines. So everything's looking pretty good out there. And we thought we'd jump on a little Instagram Live and go over our new releases for our membership shipments. So I'm going to go over these wines. Hopefully if someone pops up a question, I can catch it if I don't miss it on the tiny screen. But I think I'm going to go ahead and get started with this guy. This is a new bottling, 2019 Sauvignon Blanc. So this comes from our State Lane Vineyard. So if you guys are not familiar with it, it's up on well-named State Lane. So it's right off Yountville Crossroad, and it's one of the Gillette family, the owners of the winery. They bought this years ago, and it's a great asset for us to have because it's actually a little bit north of the winery here in Stags Leap. And believe it or not, Sauvignon Blanc benefits from a little bit more of that heat. So it ends up giving us a nice, fresh, and kind of a different profile than we get if we had Sauvignon Blanc planted out here in Stags Leap. So this is a great one. I'll put that back here. This is a lot of fun for me to make. And Mabel Ojeda, our assistant winemaker, who really gets a lot of the credit for putting this blend together. This is a fresh, really crisp style of Sauvignon Blanc. So, there's a lot of ways to make wine, right? But this is done without barrel influence for the most part. So we crush these grapes, they're pressed, and then they go into a stainless steel tank. And the idea is to have this really nice cold fermentation. And part of that is the colder that this wine is fermenting in a tank, the more aromatics and the freshness. So when you get a chance to pop this wine, if you haven't already, which I guess you haven't probably, but you'll see it just really leaps out of that glass with that fresh, bright character. It's really, to me, one of those classic like spring, summer wines. And usually what's kind of fun is it's the first wine that's released, right? So 2019, really showing off the most recent vintage and what we've bottled at the winery. That's really good. I like that. I haven't had this. When we bottle stuff, I tend to bottle the wine and then I won't touch it for a number of weeks, sometimes even a couple months, because when we bottle stuff, the wine itself tends to go through a little bit of a closed period, a little bit of a shock, we call it. And it then opens up and it really turns into this just big, beautiful, it has kind of a flowery orange blossom component to it, aside from the other usual Sauvignon Blanc characters, but really fresh, really pretty. Nice wine. I think this is going to go great with, basically, I would be drinking this with nothing. I would be drinking this by itself. Great like aperitif before dinner, outside. You can't go anywhere. Just hang out. It would go great with seafood. I'm thinking like swordfish, something like that would be fantastic. But it's just such a great wine to end your day, start your day, depending on what you're up to. So Sauvignon Blanc, 2019. Really small production on that wine too. It's definitely essentially winery only, member only. I'm going to go next to the Merlot. So this is our 2017 SBS Merlot. So SBS is a special vineyard selection. So kind of came up with this concept, again, winery only, membership only, and it's a wine tier between the Cab and the Merlot that I'm going through and picking out different barrel selections and lots without having to worry so much about kind of a single vineyard scenario. So like our Herondale Cabernet, 100% from Herondale, but this is the Merlot, but for the SBS Cabernet, I might be able to pick Merlot from our different vineyard sources and make a different blend that's a little bit different than any of the bottlings that we normally do, but I'm not constrained by trying to keep it in one appellation. So it is a Napa Valley blend of some of the better lots that we have. Same with the Merlot. So this is going to be the funny thing about this, every year is a little different because we have the property in Carneros, which makes some great, great deck wine. I like that. I imagine you're talking about the Sauvignon Blanc. That's a good comment there. The Estate Merlot, 2017 warm vintage. So this has been a great vintage, and this wine probably surprised me the most as far as the 17 vintage and which wines were really excelling. And this 17 SVS Merlot was one of those ones after we bottled it. So this has been in the bottle a little longer, but I remember trying this maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, and yeah, it still has it. It's super expressive, really pretty bright, classic Merlot. This is 100%, so it didn't blend anything with that. Sometimes I will take a little Cabernet Sauvignon, throw it in with the Merlot. It helps get the wine to get the level of kind of structure and complexity you want. But what I found is this particular bottling is also 100% from Stag's Leap. We're not actually saying that on the bottle, but it is a Stag's Leap exclusive bottling. And so this is sort of our bigger, sort of more bold Merlot. And so it didn't really need any Cabernet Sauvignon. So pure Merlot, really, this is sort of a big, almost cab drinker style, but it doesn't smell like Cabernet. Rich, chocolatey, great plum character, but definitely different than Cabernet. But I really like the flavor profile and what's going on here. Totally different wine. And I think this is going to be in the red only club shipment. So if you get a chance to try this and you didn't get in a shipment, I would definitely get a hold of it if possible. It's a really pretty Merlot. It's probably my favorite Merlot that I've made here of all the different ones that we do. So hopefully get a chance to try it. Okay. Now, so this is a pretty special wine. So Cabernet Franc. This is Herondale Vineyard, Cabernet Franc, Stag's Leap District. This is exclusively kind of our branded Stag's Leap vineyard called Herondale, which is actually named after the birds that I can see them out my window behind me. I'm at the winery. And Herondales, or the swallows, have really taken over at this point. They were kind of slow to come this year. They usually have been here for a month or so by now, but they've really just in the last couple of weeks put a big effort in building their nests and swarming around everywhere outside. I think probably because nobody's bothering them. There's really no one at the winery, unfortunately. But they're kind of taking over, swarming around by the thousands. Anyway, Herondales, or swallows, named this vineyard, so we wouldn't have the Clos de Val terroir, if you will, if it wasn't for the Herondale. So we named it after him, as you probably have heard the story. But the thing with Cabernet Franc is it sort of has accidentally become sort of a star for us. It was typically a blending varietal. It's always been a Clos de Val kind of staple to have some Cabernet Franc blended in with that Cabernet Sauvignon or Merlot or whatever the blend might be. But in recent times, we have really focused on Cabernet Franc, and hopefully some of you watching have had this in the tasting room. And we've really been surprised on the amazing reception that we've gotten. And I've taken this to tastings with other winemaker friends. It's usually one of the hits of the night. It's been something that's a really special wine. And I think something different. I think people like something a little bit different. The parentage of this is the parent grape of Cabernet Sauvignon. Cabernet Franc was crossed with Sauvignon Blanc. I think it was 400 years ago. I gotta look that up, but it was some time ago, and that that kind of rustic nature to having this older grape really comes across in the wine with this kind of a leafy. Yeah, I mean it's so different. It has such a different nose than either Merlot or Cabernet. I always get like a leafy kind of crushed leaves, or almost like tobacco cigar wrapper kind of thing. But a lot of sort of exotic spice. Yeah, it's just so it has layers to it of these flavors. It has like juicy fruit component, the dusty dryness, It doesn't have a lot of the classic, the Cabernet Sauvignon classic cassis, or maybe a bit of bell pepper you might get. It's totally absent. It's a different animal. This one actually, unlike the Merlot, I did put a little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon in here, just 9%. And again, going through the trial blends, when I put this together, it's like one of either the best or the worst parts of the job, because you have to spend day after day tasting through basically hundreds of wines and coming up with these kind of ratios, where I start out with the Cabernet Franc that I like the best, try it by itself, and then I try it with a little bit of Merlot in it, a little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon, a little bit of this and that, and kind of pare it down to what is working the best. And that was actually, to me, in this vintage, it was the Cabernet that I picked was one of the leaner, kind of more balanced Cabernet Sauvignons that went well with the Franc. So one question on one of you guys is the preference between the 16 or the 17 Franc. This is a really tough question, obviously. I would right now I'm going to say the 17. I think the 16 was fantastic. I think the 15 was fantastic. But the thing is, the 17 is a little bit brighter, a little bit warmer in 17 than 16, and it shows this sort of bright freshness to it that I really like. But again, it's just tasting a little different than the 16, which is also a very solid wine. Same vineyard, same basic structure to the wine, so it's just a little bit different, but very similar. The length of that too. I think it's going to be hard to find a wine that we're currently selling that has the length of this Cabernet Franc in the mouth. I can still taste it. Still taste it. There's a lot of tasting there. I am going to do a palate cleanser and have more Sauvignon Blanc. That's my plan. I like to do this sometimes. I do this in actual tastings. I often with Chardonnay, I'll look at the red wines. You get that nice tannin, nice finish and aftertaste, just finishing up the flavor of that Cabernet Franc. And you could try this at home. It's a good after dinner trick. Going back to a high acid white like this is really an interesting way to kind of reset your sense of smell. It's amazing how this feels like it's sort of flushing out, just like your sense of smell and making it, kind of recharging it. And then the acid, it's a great way to finish that kind of tasting lineup, is that nice, fresh, bright acid in the mouth. A little tangy, very good stuff. Well, anyway, that kind of covers the wines that are in the member shipment. And also, I know these type of virtual tastings, we're doing one-on-one with our staff at the winery, who are mostly at home. And I think in a link in our bio or our website will show that info, but it's kind of cool what we're doing. One of the things includes a Coravin, which is something I've been using more than I have in the past, which is kind of fun because you can take and have a couple ounces out of a bottle of Clos d'Aval and put it back, and it'll last for really months without having to open up a bottle if it's just one or two people. Not that I say you shouldn't open a bottle for one or two people, but it does give you a different kind of opportunity to try more things while we're cooped up. Well, great, guys. Thank you for joining. I hope everyone has a good weekend, and I hope you enjoy the wines if you haven't received them yet when you do get them, or any other Clos d'Aval wines that you might be having out there. And I believe next week I will be doing a same sort of format with a new release, brand new ever release of our Riesling. Hey, that was good timing. Just got a question about thoughts on the Riesling before I went. And so the Riesling, that is, an incredibly small production. So it's kind of a funny story. We were just talking about this. There's less than 100 cases we produced of Riesling. And it is, well, I don't know if it's going to be sold out, but I'm pretty sure it will sell out very quickly. So don't delay on the Riesling if you want to try it. There's just very little of it out there. And it is pretty stunning wine. It's great. I mean, it's just so different. It's totally different than what we've done at Clos d'Aval, but it's really it's really kind of it's a departure from the standard stuff, but that's what makes it kind of fun. So I think for me, just kind of mixing it up with winemaking and doing something that I don't think I've done before. I can't remember making a Riesling in my career. So something fun and different to do. And we'll be looking at another couple wines as well. So check that out. It should be this pretty much same time, same place next week on Thursday. So hopefully you get a chance to check that out, and I will see you all then. All right, guys. Thank you.